Hi guys, and welcome back. Today I have with me the brilliantly talented Michael Vinsen. Hi Michael.
Hi, you make me blush.
Oh, it's true, you're so good. How are you today, mate?
I'm all right. It's another day in lockdown, isn't it? So dull.
Let's just give a little bit of background about us two. Our paths have never actually crossed, although I've been very aware of you and your brilliant career. I mean, we have a small association through a friend, but today I'd like to take a little delve into talking about you, and also let's have a little look into your career.
Ooh.
First things first, where are you from and how did this all start for you?
I'm from Ashford in Surrey. That's where I was born and lived the first few years of my life. Then we moved to the East Coast, Essex, Frinton-on-Sea. And that's kind of where I grew up. How did it start? I suppose we were doing music lessons, and in our music lessons at school, we had to sing. And then the music teacher kind of said to my parents, he's got a good voice. That's maybe something he should look into. Then I started doing the choirs and things. I randomly found out about Saturday schools. I used to go to an Italia Conti Saturday school.
Oh, yeah.
Around the corner from where I went to school. I did that for about a year or so. I mean, this is when I was like 8 or 9. They told me about the stage. Do you remember the old newspaper of the stage? When you could buy an actual newspaper and you have to go down to the newsagents and pay you 20p and buy the stage.
Yeah, that's right. Make sure you pre-ordered.
Yeah, literally. And randomly in the back of one copy of the stage one day was an open audition for the UK tour of Oliver. They were only doing 2 venues. They were doing Plymouth and Manchester. They were looking for local kids or kids that were available. And it just so happened that the Plymouth run of the tour ran over summer holidays from school. So I think the auditions must have been in Easter holidays or half term or something, because randomly my parents were just like, do you want to go and, just see what it's like? And I was like, sure. So my parents were like, do you know what, let's go. We'd like to go down to Devon and Cornwall for a few days over half term. Let's go. We know when the auditions are. Let's go and just see. We went down, we all piled in the car, me and my 2 sisters and my parents. I went to this open call for the kids in Oliver. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. My parents weren't stagey at all. They're not pushy stage parents in the slightest. And they just didn't know what was happening. We just kind of went, we turn up to this place, we queue up, we get a number, you go and you do what you're told, which is what I did. I did all of that. And I kept coming out of and going, I've got to go back in. And some kids were going home, I've got to go back in a minute. I've got to go back in a minute. And I got the job. I was in Fagin's gang in the Plymouth leg of the UK tour of Oliver when I was 10 over the summer holidays.
Amazing.
I think that ended the beginning of September, and I just left year 6. So I was supposed to start secondary school, and I was going to a new school, and I turned up half a term late because I was doing Oliver. So you start in a new school, you're starting secondary school for the first time, and you randomly don't do the first half of the first term because you're away. I did that, and then I started going to a different dance school, more intensive, rather than just a Saturday school. I was doing the Saturdays, and then I was doing all the evening classes as well. I'd hop on my bus to school in the morning. I'd get back about 5 o'clock. I'd change in the car, and we'd drive the 15-20 minutes to Clacton, and I'd go and do my dance classes, and then I'd be picked up about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, go home, eat something, do as much homework as I could, and do it all again. That was kind of my life until I started training at Lanes.
That's so good. I mean, I share an experience with you when it comes to Oliver. I remember we were on a holiday in Tenby, Wales. My grandmother had said to me, she said, oh, they're auditioning for Fagin's gang in Leicester, at the Leicester Haymarket there under Paul Kerrison. My dad said, oh, we're actually on holiday when they're doing the auditions. And I was really disappointed because I wanted to go for it. I'd done some amateur stuff and I was like, I really wanted to go. He said to me, well, look, if you can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get yourself ready, I'll take you.
I can. Yes, I can do that.
Yeah. Like being the kid at the time, I was 10 and he was like, yeah, well, he's not going to do that. I don't even know how I was awake at that time. I didn't even have an alarm clock. I was properly awake all night, like just waiting. But sure enough, I was awake, and my dad, he just said, well, fine, I'll take you. So he drove from Wales all the way back to Leicester. And then I went in and we had to sing a little bit of Food, Glorious Food. And then we thought that was it for the day. So we went out, and then this lady came chasing behind, and she said, oh, would Aaron like to come back in and, try for Oliver? And me and my dad just looked at each other, and remember my dad just going, can you sing? And I was just like, I don't know.
Right. See what
and then that's kind of where that started for me. It's just mental. But yeah, how awesome. Which production was it you were doing? Was it the original 1994 production that went on tour? Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That was such a good show. I saw that at the Palladium, and I was sat next to my dad watching that. I was much younger than 10 at the time when I watched it. And I remember listening to the lad on stage singing Where Is Love, and I turned to my dad after he'd finished whilst they were applauding, and I said, I'm going to be that boy one day. And sure enough, like eventually it happened. It's just little magical moments in life like that. You just think like
you realize they're happening at the time, and you don't realize until you kind of get to this sort of age and you look back and you go, oh, okay, that was literally that happening. And
yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
I remember when I was tiny, before I started doing it all, we went on a school trip, my class, to go and see Cats at the New London.
Yeah.
My dad drove the minibus, and we went in. I remember opening the program. There's that bit near the opening of the show where they all like form a pyramid and they come to the front and they'll go like that.
Yeah.
And that was the centerfold of the program, of the big souvenir brochure. And I was terrified of that picture. And then I walked into the actual auditorium and saw this giant baked bean can and giant tire and everything. And I was terrified. And I ran out of the auditorium. Just went, no, I'm not doing that. Not.
Really?
Yeah, I was, and this chaperone had told me that they come and crawl under the seats and come up into the audience and everything. And to this day, I hate when I'm sat in an audience and the cast come off the stage. It absolutely freaks me out because I get so terrified that they're going to come up to me. When I'm myself, I am not that person. I'm not a big kind of extroverted person. Put me on a stage playing a character and I'm absolutely fine. But
it's a different zone.
Oh yeah, absolutely different zone. But I ran out of the theatre and they wouldn't let us back in because the cast were going in and out through the auditorium. They wouldn't let us back in, and my dad had to come and sit outside with me, and we watched the first half on a little TV screen in the bar.
Right.
At the end of Act 1, a couple of the cast exited through the audience and came down through the bar, and there was a pass door to backstage. And they kind of saw me sat there, and I'm like cowering into my dad as these people, giant cats, walk past me.
What's going on?
And they said, "Oh, what's wrong with him? Is he okay?" And Dad was like, he's just a bit scared. And they said to me, "Okay, where are you sat?" And just so happened I was sat on the end of the row, and they said, "Oh, you should go in and watch it. You'll really like it. There's a scary bit in Act 2. Where are you sitting?" And my dad showed him the tickets and everything. He said, "We'll come and find you, and we'll sit with you, so you're not scared on that bit." After the show finished, they said, "After the show finishes, come to this door." And so after the show finished, we went back to that. I sat and watched Act 2, like gripping my dad's hand the whole way through, absolutely terrified. And they took me backstage and they took me around the back of the set, and they showed me the dressing rooms, and they showed me all the wigs on the blocks, and they showed me the costumes. And they said with the costumes, sometimes if something goes wrong, they just colour it in because it was all the lycra things, and they had all these Crayola pens and things. And they just said, "So that's it, and it's all make-believe, it's all playing pretend." And I walked out of that theatre and I got in the car and I said to my mum, "I want to do that." And that was it. And then I then I threw myself into my Saturday classes, and that's why it was like, yeah, let's go and do this. Let's go and try Oliver. Let's go see what happens, Let's do that, because that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to play pretend for the rest of my life.
I mean, don't we all? That's amazing, though. So actually, from something that you were, really quite frightened of, something very positive came out of that, and subsequently is your career.
Oh, yeah.
How amazing.
Terrified. Absolutely terrified of it.
You trained at Lane Theatre Arts, didn't you?
I did.
How was that experience for you? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
I don't know if I still am, but at the time I was the youngest person to ever go to Lanes because I was a year ahead of myself at school. I did my GCSEs when I was 15. It was just school leaving age. I just went through the whole audition process for Lanes. I think I auditioned for like 3 colleges. But when I walked into Lanes, I was like, this is where I should be. This is right for me. I remember going through the whole audition process, and then we had to go back and do an audition for, I don't know if they still have them, the Dadas and things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Had to go back and do the audition for that, and I got a Dada, so that really helped with the fees for that. And I remember being in the musical theatre assessment. We had to stand there and say our name, our age, what we had for breakfast, and sing a little bit of a song. And I said, I'm Michael Vinsen, I'm 15 years old, and I had bacon and eggs for breakfast. And she went, sorry, you what? And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, you're how old? I was like, 15. When's your birthday? I was like, in 2 weeks. And off she went out. I was like, what the hell's going on? Because of my age, I shouldn't have been on a Dada because it was a government thing and he had to be 16 years old to have the Dada.
Oh.
So there was this big kerfuffle, and they rang my mum. They were like, please tell me Michael's 16 and he's very confused about his age. And she was like, he'll be 16 in 2 weeks. So it was all very confusing and all a bit worrying for a few days. And then they managed to switch the Dada to another boy who was on a scholarship provided by Betty Lane, and they switched me. So I ended up on Betty Lane's scholarship, and the Dada went to the other boy. So it wasn't any a big kerfuffle with the fees. So that was my first experience of Lanes. Going to college when I was 15 years old, quite frankly, I look back at it now and go, a mistake. I shouldn't have gone that early.
Really?
I was a fish out of water, and I was far too immature to be doing that at that age.
Okay, honest.
And I went through a lot of highs and lows at college. A lot of things happened in my private life, and a lot of things happened within college that, and I wasn't emotionally or mentally equipped to handle it. At my old dance school, I was the big cheese, and I was the dancer that could sing, but my old dance school was very dance based. And when I got to Lanes, there were all these people who could dance as well as me, if not better than me, but they couldn't necessarily sing as well as me, or they weren't as high up in the lambda grades and all of the acting that I used to do along the side. And so I got to Lanes, and they said, well, you're a singer actor. And then I just went, oh, okay, I'm a singer actor. I'm not a dancer. And then I think I just started falling behind in the dance classes because I had told myself, right, I'm a singer actor. So if that's what I've got to do, I've got to focus on that. So then I started falling behind in the dance classes, and then I had an absolute freak out because I come from a very, like the way my school was and everything, it was, you do not get yourself in trouble. And if you get yourself in trouble, it's terrifying.
Right. Yeah.
And the second I was in trouble at Lanes for missing dance classes or anything, I was absolutely terrified. So I used to just go and sit in the other building and sit in singing classes all day. And it got to the point where they nearly kicked me out.
Really?
Missing so many dance classes. I had a meeting with Miss Lane, and she said, right, now's the time, you need to turn things around. And I did. And I graduated with the musical theatre award and as head boy. So I managed to turn things around.
Hey, bonus.
Somehow.
Let's have a little chat about your career, mister. One of the first things you went into was We Will Rock You, but you did it in Zurich. Is that right?
I graduated in July and I flew out in September to Cologne in Germany, and that's where we rehearsed because they were doing it in the big musical dome there. Yeah. We rehearsed there, and we were taught by Louise King, who was the dance captain at the time, in Cologne, and she was the associate for our production. She was amazing, and it was like, bop, 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 this is how you do it. And I was like, this is insane. Because again, coming out of college, you're so used to you doing your dance classes and everything, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. I didn't speak German at all. We had classes. Turns out it's a relatively simple language to pick up. All of the dialogue was in German, and half of the singing was in German. So many people have so many opinions about We Will Rock You, and oh, it's a terrible plot line. And to be fair, it is. But I may be biased, but I think the way it was told in Germany actually worked, because everything in the first few numbers was sung in German. And then when Galileo and Scaramouche come on, they sing in English, because they sing in the forbidden language of rock.
Got ya.
Is English. So the second you get into all the Bohemian stuff, everything's spoken in German so that the audience can understand it, and then it's sung in English. And that's the way that works. But yeah, that was an incredible experience. We rehearsed for a month in Cologne, and then we all got on a bus to Zurich. And as you go through the border into Switzerland, it's like arriving in Disneyland, and all the pavements are like sparkling. And you're like,
wow.
No chewing gum on the streets and things. And you're like, what the hell? This is amazing. Yeah, we were in Theatre 11 opposite the big stadium in a place called Oerlikon, which is about 10 minutes outside of Zurich Central.
Right, okay.
And this massive purpose-built modern theatre, it's like the Dominion, but in Switzerland. It was incredible. It was an amazing experience for a first experience to have. I did 9 months over there, and then they do like a summer break. It was like, well, you'll have like a month or so off, and that's when your contract ends, but we're going to do another 6 months or so after that. So would you like to come back after that? And I was umming and ahhing, but I was auditioning for Hairspray at the time. So when I got Hairspray, I said, no, thank you very much, but I'm moving back to London. I'm going to go do that.
And so when you went into Hairspray, you went in as Brad.
Brad, the nicest kid.
And you covered Link and Corny Collins.
Yes, I did 2 years on Hairspray. I was cover Corny Collins for the first year. And then the second year, they asked me if I'd come in for the Link understudy, because both of the Link understudies were leaving. And they were looking for someone else to cover it. And so they asked if I'd come in for that. So I said, yeah. And they gave me the Link cover as well. So I was alternating between my own track and the other two at the drop of a hat. There were, I started one performance as Corny Collins, and I sang Nicest Kids as Corny. And then Ben Ellis, who was playing Link at the time, was really sick, and he'd come in and done the first bit of the show and just gone, I can't do it. So he did the Madison, and Nicest Kids came on for the second bit, and I wasn't Corny anymore. Someone else was Corny, and I was suddenly Link. So the second the screen went up for Link's It Takes Two solo, I was stood there with the guitar, like
audience going, what?
Twice actually. That happened to me on Grease as well with different characters. But
did you go on quite a lot?
Yeah, I don't know how many times I did Corny. I know I did Link a lot more than I ever did Corny, but I just had a ball. And so I was 20 years old in an original West End cast of this massive Broadway transfer that was the biggest thing to hit London in years. And we were doing Children in Need and the Royal Variety Show, the Oliviers and all this. And I was just like, this is the dream. I am literally living the dream. Could not believe my luck. It was the most incredible experience of my life. I had the most bizarre audition process for Grease, in that I always got told at college, you need to make yourself as saleable as possible. Okay. So one of the pieces of advice that I got given by one of my teachers at college was, don't go suggesting a character, go as a blank slate. And so that's what I used to go into auditions doing. So I would always go into auditions in like chinos and a black shirt. I probably still do go into auditions in chinos. I did my first round for Grease, and they sent me the understudy material for Eugene, Doody, Vince Fontaine, Teen Angel, Danny, Kanicki, and Sonny.
Wow.
So every single male principal character bar Roger, because Roger is supposed to be the slightly bigger guy and I was a 21-year-old
beanpole.
freak of piss, I used to call myself. And throughout the entire audition process for that, I even in my final, I was still doing every single one of those characters. And I was like, I am so not a Danny Zuko or a Kaneki. What are we playing at? So I ended up being Eugene and covering Doody, Vince, and Teen Angel. And then halfway through my contract, the boy that was playing Doody got nodules and had to leave.
Oh, wow.
And there was like a 2-month gap between him leaving and the next guy coming in and taking over.
Right.
So I played Doody for that 2 months. So I just put it on my CV as played Doody.
Fair.
So I was like, well.
Basically did it. And then you went on to the Legally Blonde tour, playing Aaron Schultz.
Yes.
How was tour life for you? Was that your first tour?
Yeah. I hate touring.
Oh, really?
I'm such a homebod. I'm just a homebod, and I don't have a problem with it, with the concept of it, and all respect for people that love it. I just don't like it because I like being at home.
Fair.
I don't like living out of a suitcase, and like I said, I'm quite an introverted person. I'm also a bit of a scaredy cat. Being in a strange place terrifies me. So you can imagine what it was like at 18 moving over to Germany. I think I was in a new relationship, and it was all a bit like, well, I've just got into this relationship that I'm very serious about, and all of a sudden I have to go and do that because that's my career and that's my work. But I didn't like it, and I didn't like that part of it. Love the show. Legally Blonde, in my opinion, is one of those hidden gems that people kind of forget about because they just think it's pink and fluffy, and you forget how incredible that show is.
I think it's very, very well written. The journey for Elle Woods is extraordinary. I choreographed it over in Leamington over here, and we had the best time kind of discovering the show. And all of the numbers in so many different ways are so very different, and that's what I loved about it.
It doesn't it's not distorted in any way. It's got this amazing through line, and the lyrics are so witty. My dad watched it, and my dad is like the quietest, proudest father on the planet. He came to see Legally Blonde, but he's a lawyer, and he was like, it's so clever. That's the little gem of Legally Blonde as far as I'm concerned. It is this big pink fluff ball that is actually so clever. I'd do that show again in a heartbeat. I love it so much.
Same. I would as well. It's just the nice thing about the show, it has got such heart. And I think, anybody who sits and watches it, even if you're like masculine footballer or whatever, like you will find something in that show that you connect with. We just had the best time. Like, it was so fun, and there's moments where it really tugs at your heartstrings, and you go on that emotional journey. I was so excited for opening night for the audience to see what we had produced, and I think for the company at the time, it was one of the most successful shows that they had done because it was the right show. We had the best cast. Everyone was fantastic, and we had the best time. Did you do the skipping routine?
Yes.
How did you find that?
Challenging.
Yeah.
We used to do a 10-minute skipping warm-up, and then a 10-minute physical dance warm-up with stretching and everything, and then our vocal warm-up. So we'd end up doing warm-up for about half an hour. So we'd have to do the 10 minutes of skipping just to get it in your body more than anything. And everyone's, because we were in the orange jumpsuits for the skipping number, we could get into them quite quickly in the interval. So we'd all come down at rather than coming down at Act 2 beginners, we'd all come down at the 5-minute call and just get skipping and get going, just so it was your blood's pumping and already at that heart rate.
It's not something that you learn at drama school. No. Like, you don't take skipping classes. Like, this is an extra thing you have to pick up.
Jerry always used to say you have to go zen with it, and you don't you don't think about it, and you don't think about like picking up your knees and jumping. You're just doing that, and because we've still got our skipping ropes in the other room, and because they're they're jump ropes, not skipping ropes. They've got these beads on them.
Oh, right.
It's all hit to the time. So once you've got that beat, you know that the second you hear that bead hit the floor, when you jump. And you can do it for like 10, 15 minutes and just zone out. But obviously that was many moons ago. And if I try and do that for 10 minutes now, I'm like,
And it was during this time on Legally Blonde, you discovered that you were quite unwell, didn't you?
yes, I had testicular cancer, which I discovered randomly in the shower. And it was a Saturday morning and I was supposed to go in for the matinee. And I was in the shower getting ready in the morning and I felt a pain. You know, that kind of feeling when they say, everyone always says men complain too much about like if you've been kicked in the balls and it really hurts. It was that, but it was constant and it didn't go away.
Gosh.
And I rang my company manager and I said, don't tell anyone what's going on, but I can't come in today. This is what's happened. And I'd found a lump, and he was like, don't worry, get yourself sorted out. Go to A&E. It was a Saturday, so I couldn't go to the GP. I had to go to A&E. Mm-hmm. So I had a freak out, and I rang my parents, and I drove across London, aching the entire time, to my parents who lived in Epsom, and I went to Epsom A&E, and I had it checked out, and they said, oh, it's probably a cyst. I come back for an ultrasound in a week or so, and it'll be a cyst, and then we'll just book you in for the removal and all the rest of it, and you'll be fine. I was like, right, okay. So I went back to work, but it was still aching. So I basically said to the company manager, look, we're going to have to do something about this because I can't skip. So we spoke to the dance captain and told her what was going on, and she cut me from the skipping number for that week. So I didn't do the skipping for the rest of the Brighton run, but I did everything else. And then we had, Sunday was obviously our day off, but when we went to new venue, Monday was our travel day and we'd open on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And we were supposed to open in Leicester. Tuesday morning was when I was having my ultrasound. And so I said to the company manager, look, I'm probably going to be a little late to tech, but as soon as I'm out of there and they told me it's a cyst and everything, I'll get in the car, I'll drive straight from the hospital up to Leicester and I'll be there and we'll do the tech and all that, get in and I'll be there for opening night. And he was like, right, great, fine. And I did the ultrasound and the guy said to me, have you been to urology yet? And I was like, no, why? What's going on? And he said, I think there's someone at the moment. I'm just going to go see if I can find someone. I was like, why? What's going on? And he said, it's not a cyst. It's a tumour. And walked out the room.
You're joking.
Just left me there. And I was like, but I kind of owe that man my life in that he went and found someone. He found the head of urology at Epsom Hospital, who happened to be on his lunch break, and took me down a back corridor that patients weren't allowed in. And he checked me out and said, yep, that's a tumour. Do you need to call someone? Oh, and I said, I literally remember saying to him, I'll call my dad because my mum will have a freak out.
Yeah.
And my parents lived like 2 minutes drive away from the hospital. So I got on the phone to my dad and he picked up the phone and he went, are you all right? And I went, ugh. And he went, where are you? What? We'll be there in 2 minutes. Mm. My mum walked in the room. It was all a blur to me. I just know my mum walked in the room. She sat down next to me. She was holding my hand and he explained everything. And she said, I want it out as soon as possible. Get my mum in a pressured situation. And she goes, right, bop, 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 bop. And 2 days later, it was out, but then I had recovery and everything because it was the orchidectomy is quite a big operation. Although it's a in and out in a day operation. It's they cut literally through your abdominal muscles. So I wasn't going back to work. No. But I had 12 weeks left on my contract of Legally Blonde, and I rang my agent when I came out of that ultrasound and said, I'm supposed to open in Leicester tonight and I've got cancer. And they went, we'll deal with it. So that was that. And I never went back to Legally Blonde.
Wow. I mean, like that must have been disappointing.
Oh, I was heartbroken because, as I said, as much as I hate touring, I loved that cast and I loved that show. and we all got on like a house on fire, and I didn't want to leave them. I wanted, if I could have done Legally Blonde in one place with them, I would have done it for another year or so. I was so in love with that show and just happy where I was in my job. But obviously this came along and it was like, stop.
And how long were you actually out of work for with this?
That was February 2012. I started chemo in May. I did 3 months of chemo. I think I came back to work the following summer, so it was about a year and a half.
Okay.
Roughly. Ish.
Yeah, I mean that's a long time, really, isn't it? When you're a performer, that must have been mentally exhausting.
Oh, it was mentally, it was physically exhausting. When that happened, I was 22. I was touring, doing 8 shows a week in Legally Blonde, skipping. I was, as far as I was concerned, I was like peak fitness. And I went from that to out the other side of chemo. Like, we got the dog just before I started chemo. After it all finished and everything, and I was in remission and I was recovering, we had a 6-month-old puppy that needed walking, and Darren was working. He was in Ghost at the time. So the dog had to be walked, and I didn't want to leave the house. I became so introverted, and especially in our industry where, you know, your appearance is what you sell.
Mm.
And I lost my hair, and I gained so much weight because of the steroids I was on, and I was bloated, and I felt drained the whole time, and I couldn't walk the dog for half an hour around the park without having to stop and sit on a bench like every 10 minutes. And I'd have to stop and breathe for 5 minutes and go, right, okay, and now we carry on. And, you know, and that was my life for about 6 months, building up my stamina and things like that. I was gutted because I had built up a reputation for myself within the industry as a reliable company member and a good understudy, and I was always got a lot of praise when I went on for my principal roles, and that's what I wanted to do, and that's the transition I wanted to make. I wanted to work my way up through the industry from the ensemble, understudying, playing my own smaller parts, and building my way up until I became a leading man in my own right. And I literally felt like the rug was pulled from underneath me, because I was like, well, no one's going to want to hire me. He's the cancer boy. And I literally lost all of my confidence and everything. It was horrific.
I can't even imagine. What an awful experience for you. But, you know, from that, something very positive came out of it, which is wonderful. And you went on to play Peter Simmons in Bear.
Did.
Amazing. Like, this is a show after my own heart as well. So could you tell me about your experience in Bear and how important it was to you?
I try not to get emotional when I talk about Bear. I discovered Bear when I was at college. I must have been about 17 or something. And I was not dealing with my own sexuality. I knew I was gay from a very early age, but I hadn't told anyone, and I wasn't prepared to tell anyone because of my lifestyle and my upbringing, and quite frankly I wasn't ready to share that with people. And it was like my little secret, Bear was. Yeah. And listening to Bear and listening to what Peter said about things and all of that, it was literally like, I was like, it spoke to my heart, and it was my absolute dream role. I had a couple of phone calls from my agent saying, oh, so and so's inquired if you're available, if you're ready to come back into the industry and maybe come in and sing for this show, or maybe come in and sing for that, or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm not ready. And then I got a phone call saying Paul Taylor Mills is putting on a production, and Will Burton, who is David Grindrod's assistant, is casting it, and it's his first casting adventure on his own. Mm-hmm. And he has had an eye on you for a few years, and he knows obviously you've been sick, but he's wondering if you'd come in for it. It's not going to start rehearsals for another month or so you'll still have a bit of time to prepare yourself. I don't know if you know the show, it's called Bear. And I went, yes, I'll do it. I said, is it for Peter? And they said, as far as I'm aware, they are looking at you for Peter. I said, yes, I will do it. I will come in and sing. They asked me to sing Role of a Lifetime, and it was the strangest audition process of my life. I went in at like 6:00 one evening because I think I kind of got to my agent and said, look, this is my first audition back. I don't want to be sat in an audition room waiting with a load of people around me and my peers and have to talk about what I've gone through and all of that. And people, I was very self-conscious of people sitting in audition waiting rooms, you know, whispering about, oh, that's the boy, it's Michael, his first time back. So they, bless them, they did it like end of a day. I was the last person in, and I went in and I sang Role of a Lifetime, and I left, and the next morning they rang and offered me the part, and that was that.
Bonus.
And I did Bear twice over the course of a year. We did a month's run at the Union, and then we did another month and a half at Greenwich Theatre, and it all got a little bit bigger. I had the same Jason opposite me both times, but the rest of the cast changed for Greenwich. So it was me and Ross William Wilde. And when I met Ross for the first time, I think we just kind of clicked, and it just worked. And I always say Bear was like therapy for me, because I was just playing myself, and I was finally getting to say all of those things that I'd thought and felt for all of those years out loud, but I didn't have to say them as myself.
Yes, yes.
I just got to bare my soul without anyone realizing that I was bearing my soul.
There's another thing I share in common with you. I played Peter myself in the Loughborough production. God, it feels like a lifetime ago now. But there is something so beautiful about the way that it is written, both musically and lyrically. It's one of those shows which you can quite easily get lost in. There are so many shows that you as an actor have to try and connect to, but there was something about Bear, you automatically connected with it, and it wasn't hard work. No. I don't feel like Bear is a difficult show to connect with. It's just, it's beautiful. The characters, like every single character in that show, you know, they've got a purpose, and they serve that purpose right up until the climax moment, almost towards the end, and the big confrontation where it all comes out, and it's very, very dramatic because there's a lot of things that are going on throughout that lead to that moment. And we as a cast really enjoyed that. Like, we found that this was art at like one of its finest moments.
I, to this day, still am sick to death of seeing gay people represented as the fabulous one, or the funny one, or something to be laughed at. And that was the first time in my industry, in the musical theatre world, that I saw a gay person as the leading character that wasn't this big flamboyant queenie character. And sometimes I am that person, and sometimes I'm not. And I think there's a little bit of both in all of us, but to see an honest portrayal of a young gay guy coming to terms with his sexuality and in this intense relationship in the musical theatre industry meant the world to me. And the industry does need to make a change, but also it needs to make a change with the stories we're telling. I want the world we're portraying on stage to look like the world we live in.
The one thing that I really love about Bear as well is the fact that it deals with something that's very real. You know, it's about young boys and young girls in a community where being homosexual is a taboo subject. And, you know, it's not even the fact that it's an LGBTQ concern, it's just a reality.
It's just a teenage struggle. One of my favourite movies that I've come across in the past few years was Love, Simon.
Right.
And then I subsequently read the book of it. I'm a big fan of like rom-coms and teen movie things like that. I love them. Love, Simon is one of them. And it just so happens to be about two boys. They could take that entire plot line and make it about a girl and a boy, or two girls, and the movie would be equally as good. And I feel that's the same thing with Bear. You are watching a group of teenagers in a very religious, heavy environment come to terms with life and, yes, their sexuality, but just relationships with each other and going off to college and all that, everything that comes with that, and pressure, as you say, from their parents and from their teachers and all of this around you. And it just so happens that there's a gay love story in the middle of it. It's not a gay musical. It's a teen musical.
I agree.
With a gay love story at the centre of it.
It was a very special show for me.
Oh,
I think actually one of my favourites. Let's talk about Book of Mormon.
Yes.
What was that show like for you? Did you enjoy it?
It's incredible. It was absolutely on my list of things to do. It's absolutely one of those ones that I was like, I want to experience that. It was my first show back in the West End after being sick. And it's just so much fun. I remember my parents coming to see it and being like, my mum doesn't like swearing. Like if there's too many F words and things on a TV program, my mum's the kind of person who will go, oh, for God's sake, to turn it off. Yeah. And I was like, my mum's going to come and watch the Book of Mormon.
Ooh.
I came out the stage door afterwards and she was like, I loved it. I loved it. She said, because it's so well written again.
Yeah.
Similar to Legally Blonde. It's so well written. Those words are in there for a reason and it's not unnecessary. The story has a huge amount of heart behind it, but I hadn't seen it before going into it. I had loads of friends that had seen the show, but no one was like talking about it, but they were all just going, it's amazing, just go see it, just go see it. What was hilarious is in the program, the Mormon church had adverts in the program for the religion. And back in the day, because I did the second cast, you couldn't get a ticket for love nor money. Like normally on shows, when you're in a show, you can say, oh, on like a midweek or something, I can probably get family and friends discount and get like a 35, 40 quid ticket that should be like 80 quid or something.
Yeah.
No, the family and friends tickets were £75 and that was it.
Wow.
So what we all used to do is we used to have a lottery every day that they wouldn't sell the front row. And you could go out and enter the lottery during the day, and at a certain point it would be drawn. So we'd have the cast WhatsApp group, and we'd be like, "Oh, my mate's coming, or my friend's coming, or my family's coming. If you're in town, can you get to the lottery today?" And then we'd all go and put our names in, and then you stand around and wait for them to draw that, and then we can go and get the tickets. And the front row tickets were £25. But the Mormon missionaries that were in London at the time used to set up a table opposite the lottery for the show.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Be there with the books and everything. I remember being stood there one day and they were going to me, so you're in the show, what's it like, is it good? And I was like, yeah, it's really good. And they were like, should we come and see it? And I was like, no,
please don't. It really sends the Mormon faith up. Did you experience any sort of backlash from that at all?
They're so nice. Nothing that's in the show, as far as I'm aware. I should read it actually. I've got a copy of the Bible, so to speak, the Mormon book.
Oh, really?
So got given one when I left. As far as I'm aware, nothing that is in the show, not said by Elder Cunningham because he gets it all wrong, but nothing that is in the show said by Elder Price or any of the other missionaries is wrong with regards to what they believe. But they're just so lovely. They are so nice. And as I said, the Mormon church had an advert in the program for the show. Wow. And that advert simply said, you've seen the show, now come and experience the actual thing. And that was it. And it wasn't a, damn you, blah, blah, blah. It was like, you're giving us free publicity. Thank you very much. I don't know if the original Broadway production had any problems. And I don't know because I wasn't in the original cast. I joined for the second year of Mormon in London. I don't know if when they opened it had a lot of backlash around it. I wasn't aware of it. What I experienced on that show was nothing but, great, you're giving us free publicity and maybe people will look into our religion now.
Oh, that's amazing. I love the show. I think it's hilarious. I love the premise of it. It's just so funny. That's a show I would love to do. It's great, and bits like Turn It Off, all of that. Like it really sends everything up.
Marathon. You just go round in a circle because all the dressing room. The dressing room. We were on the second floor. All of the Mormon boys in one long room, and then you go down for Act 1 beginners, and you don't go back up to your dressing room until the interval, and then you go down for Act 2 and you don't go back up to your dressing room at all. Normally in a show I can find a point to go up and down, but we had a sub-stage quick change area and it's literally a circle. You do one thing, you go down, you get changed into costume, you come up and you do that, and then you do the same again and you do the same again, and it just happens like that. And then it's the interval, and then you come down for Act 2 and you do the same thing again, and then it's done and you go home. and it's non-stop, and you're wearing like 3 layers of underwear as well underneath that.
Oh, I'd love that. I bet just to be constantly busy throughout that show. It must fly by.
Yeah, oh yeah, literally. I used to say it. I don't know how long it is. I felt like Act 1 is like 1 hour 5 or something, and Act 2 is like 50 something minutes. But it's the fastest show I've ever been part of. It starts and you're on it, and there's no stopping it, and it just goes. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're done.
I remember I went to an audition for God, who was I auditioning for? I think it was like Royal Caribbean or something. And I'm sure there was some of the American team there. I remember going in for this audition, and they said to me, I said, do you know Book of Mormon? And I was like, literally never heard of it. They asked me, how's your tap? And I said, oh, it's quite strong. They said, go from here, get yourself a dress circle, go and buy the Book of Mormon on CD, listen to it, you're great for it. And I literally did exactly what they said. I finished the audition, went to Dress Circle, bought it, listened to it. And I listened to it with my dad, actually. And he was in stitches. Like, you know, it was just like, I was like, this is so good.
It's amazing. And that tap dancing, they don't... it's an interesting one. In the audition process, you only do the simplest part of the tap routine.
Oh, right, okay.
And then you get into rehearsals and they're like, right, so now it goes, and you're like, oh, okay. And now I'm quite a good tapper and I was fine, but there were people in the auditions that were like, handled it quite well and got the job, and then got into the rehearsals and they were like,
what?
What is this? This was not in the audition.
This is not what I signed up for. And then you did Title of Show. Now, this is a show I'm quite interested in. I don't know a lot about it. I know that there's a song in it called Way Back to Then, which I always get confused with another song from Ragtime, which is Back to Before. I always get them mixed up. But I don't know a great deal about the show, but it is a show that isn't very well known. It's something that we're interested as a theatre company. That's kind of where we're going to sort of specialise, with shows that are like hidden gems that aren't very well known. So could you tell us a bit about Title of Show?
Title of Show is a musical about 2 guys writing a musical about 2 guys writing a musical.
Love it already.
I think I've got that right. So there is Hunter and Jeff, who are best friends. Hunter is the book writer and lyricist, and Jeff is the composer. And they want to write a musical for a musical theatre festival. So they just start writing stuff down and seeing what they're doing. And then they suddenly realise that what they're writing is just their life experience, and maybe that should be the story. And so the musical that they are writing for the festival becomes their journey to get to the festival. And then on top of that, they put in their friends Heidi and Susan. Susan is normally out of work actress who works in an office as her temp job, but is actually doing really well in her office job. And then there is Heidi, who is a Broadway actress who is keeping going up through the audition process. And they're all real people. So Hunter and Jeff are literally the composer and book writer and lyricist of Title of Show, and Heidi and Susan, and they all played themselves in the original production. And it's literally what you see on stage happened to those real people in real life. And they actually went to that theatre festival and put on that production.
Oh, right. Interesting.
And then it got taken bigger and bigger, and then they did a cast recording, and then it went off Broadway, and then it eventually went to Broadway.
Oh, so it is very autobiographical then.
It's literally it's a meta piece, and it is literally what you see actually happened to the actual people. Nothing in there is made up.
Amazing. I think that's something I'll probably try and leave a link to, maybe the soundtrack for people to.
It's another one that I came across at college that I was just like, that is a dream to do that show. And when I saw that it was happening, I rang my agent and said, I want to do that. I know the casting director, give him a call, say Michael wants to do it. And I got it. So I was absolutely thrilled with that one. And because it's only a 4-hander, there's a line in it that Heidi says at the end. She sings this song. They sing this song called 9 People's Favorite Things. Favorite thing, and it's I'd rather be 9 people's favorite thing than 100 people's 9th favorite thing.
I like it.
Lovely sentiment. and she says, who says four chairs and a keyboard can't make a musical? And that's literally all it is. It's 4 actors, 4 chairs, and a pianist sat at a keyboard, who they keep referring to. He's called Larry, and they keep Larry throughout the thing until at one point Larry just has enough and he kicks off. And we rehearsed it and put it on in about 8 days or something stupid like that.
Oh, brilliant. Nice and quick.
Yeah, and Jordan and I were kind of thrust into this process, and luckily we had a connection because we already knew each other, but instantly we just went, no, we got it, and we've just had this rhythm, and we've become like that ever since. And
oh, great.
I adore him, and the same with the girls, and I adore them. When you're thrust into that kind of a process so intimately with such a small group of people, it's kind of sink or swim, and
yeah,
we flew. We loved it. We got on so well. Title of show was Four-Hander with a Keyboard underneath a railway arch. And the show I'd done before that was Follies at the National. It was like,
yeah, sorry, let's talk about Follies as well.
I did it the first time with Imelda Staunton and Philip Quast. Who else did it?
So what was your experience of Follies at the National Theatre? I mean, what a dream to work at National Theatre, right?
Awesome. As I said, I'm a big old theatre geek, and so I was just like, this is amazing, because all of the people that were playing with Follies, the way it's set at a revival of like the Ziegfeld Follies sort of thing, and all these showgirls, and it's all of these people that used to be the big stars when they were in their 20s, and all of the younger ensemble play the ghosts, and they don't speak, apart from the ghosts of the 4 lead characters. They don't really speak, and so the ghosts are just wandering around the whole time, like looking at their older selves. And the people they cast in the roles of all of the older people were like, this is my CV, and I was just like and we've got like Di Botcher was Broadway Baby, and I was like, I mean, she's amazing, but I don't really know who she is. And then I looked into it, and she's like Grisabella in like the second cast of Cats, and Madame Le Grand Bouche in the original cast of Beauty and the Beast, and you name it, she's done it. And I was like, I was just like soaking it up, and working with Janie D. It's a masterclass. I used to sit and watch Janie from the wings every single night, because it's insane to see something so honest happen in front of your eyes. It was incredible. And Imelda, it's Imelda Staunton, and Tracy Bennett, who I had done Hairspray with, she was in it. She played Carlotta and sang I'm Still Here, and it was just watching a masterclass. I was just like, I'm just lucky to be here. I'm just soaking it all up, having a lovely time, singing some Sondheim and dancing around. I was just like, and the sets it was like being on a movie set, but we were in the National, and it was the funniest thing, saying I didn't know who people were. There was one person in there, Josephine Barstow, and she played the opera character, and she had this big solo in the middle of the show called One More Kiss. And she wasn't at rehearsals one day. Now, Josephine must have been, I want to say early 80s when we did it. And she wasn't there when we were setting like the first entrance of them all coming, the ladies coming down the staircase. And she wasn't there. And Bill Dean, the choreographer, would go, and then Dame Jo will come down. And I was like, oh, is she a bit la-di-da? Is she? Oh, Dame Jo. We all call her Dame Jo. No, she's Dame Josephine Barstow. She's an actual dame. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Just be like, oh, she's a bit grand, we call her Dame Jo, do we? No, she's an actual dame, Michael. It was just, and like the people that were in playing the smaller roles in the, I don't want to call them the adult ensemble, because it's an ensemble piece, but the smaller characters who understudied the major leads. Original West End cast of West Side Story, original cast of Godspell, I think one of them was, and it was just insane. I was just, and one of them was the original cast of Follies with Julia Mackenzie back in like the 80s, and then here she was understudying one of the characters that she played the young version of the first time, and I was just like, this is insane. When you're in a show like that with these people who have been doing it and grafting for years and years and years, and they're all here in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s, some of them, and they are still at the top of their game, and they are absolutely wiping the floor with everyone. The second they walk on stage, it was like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to top it, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. And I was just sat there going, this is amazing.
Whoa.
I
love it.
It was just an awe-inspiring experience. And then on top of it, I met Stephen Sondheim, and I don't think I actually said words. I would think I was just like,
hi.
And it was just incredible experience.
You've done a film, haven't you? So, well, you danced in.
I danced in Artemis Fowl.
Was that like an awesome experience? Could you tell us about that?
It was my first time doing anything like that. I think we rehearsed it in like 4 days, and it was literally just this Italian wedding scene where we're kind of dancing in a big circle around the bride and groom, and we've all got tambourines and all of this.
Oh, cool.
And then a troll appears. Everything goes to chaos and everything gets thrown around and there's tables flying and everything. And we filmed it for a week. The choreography must have changed every single day based on what the director was saying. That doesn't work. We need to do this. We need them doing that, blah, blah, blah. And then lots of freezing and things. And there was one point where they said, oh, the troll comes and then the fairies, I mean, this sounds ridiculous when you say it. The troll comes and breaks everything up and there's a big old problem. And then the fairies come and put a time freeze on everything, take the troll out and then wipe everyone's memories, and no one remembers it happens. But because they put a time freeze on it, we all had to like freeze in these positions and hold it long enough for a little girl who wasn't in the time freeze to walk slowly up to the ogre and pick up an ice cream or something, or whatever it was. And they said they had the stunt people, the dancers, and all of the background actors. And everyone had to run around and chaos, and then freeze. So all of the background actors are like, or hiding behind a plant, or this, that, and the other. But the director said, oh, with the stunt performers and the dancers, can we get some different shapes in there? So, Michael, can you just pick Fran up on your shoulder and freeze there? Yeah, great, fine. We're thinking, 30-second freeze, fine. 5 minutes later, and Fran's like, my ovaries. Because bless her, she's just on my shoulder, like in a swan lift on my shoulder. She's like there, and she's like, this is really. And we did that for an entire day. That's all we did for a day. Just pick them up, freeze for 5 minutes, put them down, reset everything, blah, blah, blah. And like a stunt performer, like hanging off a lamppost and things. And they're all just like, ow! One of the girls was like, I'll sit on this thing with my tambourine hiding behind it. So all she did all day was sit down and go, clever. You're clever.
You got off lightly.
But it was insane. And like where we filmed it was about a 20-minute drive away from my parents' house. So I was staying with my parents for the week we filmed it.
Oh, great.
Up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and drive to set. Park in the car park, get them a little mini bus round to the thing. They give you breakfast there. There's me with my full English at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. And then I'd go and sit in makeup because I'm like a ghost with ginger hair. And it's I would spend about an hour in makeup with them trying to make me look Italian, which was hilarious because they went through so many different types of like, oh, we'll just like put a deeper foundation. Oh no, he looks like the tango man. Oh, we want him to look like he's from a different part of Italy where they're fairer skinned than a normal Italian, but they've got lots of freckles and things. So they would like flick this paint, and they just end up flicking makeup at me. And I was sending Darren these pictures going, this is today's look. This is today.
That's brilliant.
It was a hilarious experience, but it was amazing.
Right, I have got some viewer questions, if you wouldn't mind answering. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Michael. What do you do to maintain your stamina during a show run?
Rest as much as possible. Don't do too much. You know what they say about muscle memory and how muscle memory, your body just clicks into that I very much work like that, in that this is what my body's doing and this is what my body has to do. To do too much else might, or has in the past, put strains on my body that have meant I couldn't do my job. I try now to just limit myself to, this is my job and this is what I have to be able to do. Obviously, keep yourself in peak condition, do your warm-ups, do your workouts and things, but don't overdo it. I try and rest as much as possible, because at the end of the day, yes, we are lucky enough to do something we love, but it's still a job. And if you can't do your job because you've done other things, but I've never been ice skating in my life because I am terrified of falling over and breaking a bone and not being able to go to work. Be sensible. Yes.
Hi, Michael. Have you had any embarrassing stage moments that you'd rather forget?
I don't really have costume mishaps because I'm so meticulous about my costumes. It's the last thing I do before I go on stage. Like, the last thing I do before I go on stage is I check my flyers done up. I've stumbled on lines before. I've forgotten words. My main one, I can't say what I said because it was extremely rude, and I got tongue-tied in the middle of a line, and I ended up calling Tracy Turnblad a very, very rude word on stage 3 times in a midweek matinee. And the irony is not lost on me that was when I was understudying and I was on for Corny Collins, and that is my job when I get back to theatre, and I've got to say that line 8 times a week. That is probably the one that sticks out in my brain because I was so embarrassed and so distraught, especially because my mum was in the audience that day.
Oh no, Mum, I am good at my job, I swear.
I get tongue-tied and call her very, very rude words. I don't always do that.
Hi, Michael. What words of support would you give to young performers struggling with LGBTQ prejudice?
I mean, the go-to answer is don't worry about what anyone else thinks about, and be yourself. But it's so difficult to do that when you're younger. Find your community, I suppose, is the thing, especially when you're like a teenager and things. If we're talking about that sort of age group, when you're that age and you have all these extra things going on with regards to school and everything is going on because you have to be doing that. When you become an adult and you get to choose your career path, you get to choose the people you spend your time with. You don't when you're a child. You have to go to school with these people. You have to see these people. And if these people are making your life a misery for whatever reason, whether it is bullying, whether it is about being a member of the LGBTQ community, or whether it is simply for being a performer, you've got to learn to not block it out, because it's impossible to block it out. I think what I tried to do was almost rise above it and go, but you're not my people. You're people that I am spending time with now because I have to. In the future, my people will be chosen by me and they will accept me for who I am and for what I do with my life. They are my kinfolk, as it were. I know it sounds corny, but just remember that phrase, it gets better, because it really, really does. And maybe not as quickly as you would hope it would. And there may be times in your life when you think it's gotten better and you think you're past it, and then something comes and smacks you in the face and you get dragged 3 steps backwards. But the other side of it is better. I promise it gets better.
So, Michael, Through the Roof Theatre Company will specialise in shows that are lesser known to a wider audience. Are there any shows that you know of that would be ideal for us to consider producing?
Vanities. Vanities is a gorgeous 3-hander for 3 young women playing from like high school age up to their 30s, and all the things they go through, and of being a very tight-knit group and breaking apart and all that. It's a beautiful piece. There's a show that I love called Is There Life After High School, which is set at a high school reunion. All the people step forward and sing their song about when they were in high school. It did do a production on Broadway, so it was quite a big thing, but Crybaby, which is another John Waters movie who did Hairspray, it's a Johnny Depp film originally that they made into a musical that's really funny. That's a good one that not a lot of people know about. There's a beautiful, beautiful musical, James and the Giant Peach.
Right. Is that the Pasek and Paul one?
And it is stunning to listen to. I think they must have done like a regional production of it somewhere in America, but they did a cast recording with like Brian Darcy James and Christian Ball and Megan Hilty and all these amazing Broadway names, but it was never put into a production. It's a piece and a half, that one.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that, and I think it's a great family story that people already know. People aren't aware of the music and how incredible their music is, and the work that they put in is definitely worth looking into because it's incredible. Dogfight. That's an amazing piece. All of that stuff, and you just sit there and you go, all these little hidden gems that people don't, unless they're really stagey like us.
Yeah.
They don't know. Send these hidden gems out into the world because they're so good and they're so worth it. Commercial theatre is not the be-all and end-all of the theatre industry, especially the musical theatre industry. It really isn't. There is so much more out there that people are not aware of. But commercial theatre is the big money maker, and without commercial theatre we wouldn't have all of the smaller things because people wouldn't care. That's just my humble opinion on it all.
Michael, thank you so much for talking with us today. If you are not aware, Michael is going back into Hairspray as Corny Collins, so you'll be able to catch him in that in future when we can all get back to theatre. You can also find him on YouTube. There's loads of videos of Michael singing, and he is absolutely brilliant. So if you've never heard him sing, I implore you, please go on and listen to him because he is a fantastic artist. Michael, thank you so much for talking with us today. It's
absolute pleasure.
It's been amazing, and I hope we can do this again at some point.
Absolutely. You've caught me in the middle of a lockdown when I'd literally see no one but my dog and my husband all the time. I'm like, someone to talk to!
Yes. Thanks very much, buddy.
Thank you.